welcome to DudeCast TV. I'm your host, Norman Dexter, where I'm a dude who's going to talk about some shit. And I want to lead with, again, apologies that my last week's episode was not released on schedule. For whatever reason, the save file was corrupted in some way, and it just duplicated one of my previous episodes. So I had to delete the video, re-edit, and re-upload, but now it's all good. And please go give that a watch. It's called The Right Way of Approaching Things, which is kind of a satire on the idea that there's any right way that exists. It's really about finding what works best for you. And it focuses mostly on controlling your environment and tracking your progress and incrementally improving little by little. And it goes along this whole day-to-day lifestyle routine thing that I've been hitting on for the last few episodes. So it does dive into things that are related to previous episodes and what I'll be hitting today, which is what I call range. Now, when I say range, I mean a range of ideas that are applicable to your day-to-day life. So the idea being that you can pick and choose ideas from other people who you perceive as successful, and you can apply them in your own life. Or another good example is how if you don't really like religion, but you also don't really like atheism, there's no reason to go all in one or the other. You can kind of pick and choose what you like, and you can create your own little belief system, whatever your spirituality is, wherever it resides. Like for me, I didn't like religion, but I also didn't like atheism. I like being somewhere in the middle. To which side, I'm not exactly sure yet, but that's how I do things. And you can do that with a lot of ideas. So whether it's politics, whether it's your execution of finances, nutrition, exercise, stress management, mental health, you can find your own way by taking ideas that you identify with and that you find relatable. And that's the idea of today's podcast. And you know that I got the notepad, so I've got some shit to say. And I want to start with a quote from Steve Jobs that goes something along the lines of, "Don't be trapped by dogma, which is living with the results of other people's thinking." Now, I like this quote because most people think that, I need to be successful, so I need to learn from others. Yes, that's correct. But think of it this way. If you copy and paste what someone else did, you're bound to receive results considered mediocre by comparison. For example, the first person to strike gold in a gold mine, they're going to take most of that gold for themselves. So if you do everything they did and ended up exactly where they ended up, there's not going to be much gold left for you to mine yourself. But what you can do is you can learn from their process, perfect your own, and then go out and mine your own gold. The idea being gold in this analogy. And so what you can do is you can apply what you find in these other people and create something new for yourself. We're all working off the backs of our ancestors. I'm recording right now because somebody created camera, because somebody created recording technology for audio, because somebody created the internet, because somebody, you get where I'm going. Other people created all these things, other people pioneered all these things that you and I can reap the benefits. So yes, take advantage of all of those benefits, including ideas. What works for you, what doesn't. And it doesn't matter how shitty the person is. And that's the next point. Because no one is perfect. I'm going to give a few examples. Arnold Schwarzenegger, one of the best bodybuilders who ever lived, arguably the most profound in terms of his impact on bodybuilding in the mainstream. But he has a bastard child that he fucked a maid and got pregnant once. Doesn't mean he had any less of an impact. Jordan Peterson is another one. He's got some good shit here and there, but apparently he also just rage quit Twitter a few days ago because apparently he doesn't like that fat models are in magazines. I don't really care that fat models are in magazines. I think it's a little funny, but it's not worth rage quitting over Twitter with. I mean, he's been through a lot of more intense controversy before in his time in the limelight, and I don't know why all of a sudden a fat model is what gets him to rage quit Twitter, but whatever. I didn't look into it. I didn't care to. Gary Vaynerchuk, this is a good one because this one's new. Gary has been great for years. He's been pushing out all these things. He even backtracked a little bit on his whole hustle culture because he realized that he was actually killing people in a way. He was pushing people so hard into burnout that people were depressed, suicidal, so on and so forth. So he trailed that back and said, listen, you need to hustle, yeah, but not to the detriment of your own health, not to the detriment of your own mental health, which was really cool. I really enjoyed that he did that. And he seemed to have a pretty spectacular record, but then he just got a divorce and he left his wife and 2 kids for a woman who's half his age. Which, you know what? Good for Gary. Whatever. He can live his life. But it was a little bit shitty that you've never seen anything posted about his kids or his wife, but he's posting pictures with his new girlfriend all over the place. So it's a little odd. It's a little against his brand, a little against who he is. So it might be a midlife crisis or whatever. But again, nobody is fucking perfect. Everybody's going to mess up, and they're going to do what they perceive is right for them. Don't judge them for that. You may judge these next couple examples, but Kevin Spacey is a great example because he did some sexually mischievous shit with some underage men and boys. So yeah, not really the best thing in the world. However, that motherfucker can act. He has some of my favorite movies. House of Cards was an amazing TV show that arguably shot Netflix to the moon. So really, really great art. Artist, not so much. Similar for Harvey Weinstein. I mean, you'd be hard-pressed to find a great movie that motherfucker didn't produce. So separate the art from the artist, separate the ideas from the person who brought those ideas to your attention. And then lastly, because it's the most relevant in recent history, Will Smith smacking the fuck out of Chris Rock and going from I Am Legend to I Am Cuck. I still love Will Smith movies. Men in Black is awesome. Fresh Prince of Bel-Air is awesome. He is an amazing actor. Love his work. Do I think he's in a shit situation where he's being abused emotionally by his succubus of a wife? Yeah, I do. And I think it's shitty that he is too prideful to leave. But, again, separate the art from the artist, the idea from the innovator. So, all of that out of the way. What the fuck does this have to do with range? It has to do with, you kind of got to figure out what works best for you, because I led with Steve Jobs on purpose, not so much because of the quote, but because he is an extreme example. That motherfucker died a billionaire, rich as fuck, and he was known to be quite the asshole. He was known to be pretty not great, and because of that, he was able to achieve massive, massive success. Yes. However, he pushed that shit far. He did a lot. And it makes you wonder, yeah, we know who he is, yeah, we remember him, but was he worth remembering? Like, would he look back and would he be happy with what he did? Yeah, he's happy that he created something, I'm sure. But what about his family, his friends, his lived existence? He put so much of his life into that work. What else was there? And if that works for him, great, good for him. You look at some of these other people like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and so on, and you look at their lives, and yeah, they're lavish. Yeah, they can do whatever they want, but are they really enjoying themselves? I mean, Elon has like 6 kids and like 3 different partners for the kids. Like, it just seems messy. It just seems like Elon's even come out and said that you wouldn't want to be him, and that he has actually figured out, like, oh, if I give my partner 10 hours a week, I'm good. The rest I can spend working. Like, if that works for him, great. But I don't know about you, that doesn't work for me. I need to find what works for me. You need to find what works for you. And the idea of range is you want to stay out of either extreme, okay? And there's 2 aspects of this. Both require patience, all right? The first aspect of patience is that if you go too far to either extreme, you're going to get setbacks. You're going to go too much to the hardcore side or too much to the very little side. Whatever it is, you're going to do too little, do too much, and you're going to have a setback. Whatever that setback may be. Maybe you procrastinated too long and you missed an opportunity. Maybe you push too hard and you injure yourself or you burn out. Both instances, whether you procrastinated or you went too hard in the paint, you're going to learn something from that. And that will help you move forward, yes. But what it helps you do is it helps you draw back from the extreme, whatever end you're at, and go more towards the middle. That doesn't mean you should be in the middle. Jack of all trades, master of none. No. It means that rather than try to be master of one thing, be expert at a few things and work towards mastery on one thing. My one thing is my career in personal training, exercise, and nutrition. That's where my mastery is. But I'm also fairly an expert on things like bodybuilding, on things like podcasting that I'm doing now with these ideas. Not particularly podcasting, but the idea spreading that is involved with podcasting, talking, those kinds of things, and other issues that I take interest in. And when you do that, you start to notice something. And I'll reference one of my favorite bodybuilders, Dorian Yates, because he looked at the people in the bodybuilding industry that he identified with. And he applied what worked best for him, because he never liked being on a team. He liked the fact that it was all on him. It was all just him. That's what he liked about bodybuilding. It was an individual sport, and if he fucked up, it was on him. If he won, it was because of him. And so he really enjoyed that. And he looked at people like Mike Mentzer, who had this high intensity sort of training style that involved working very, very hard for short periods of time with extreme intensity to achieve extreme results, but very, very little time commitment. He would work out roughly 3.5 hours a week, and he was one of the biggest of all time. So what he did was he took it very hard to the extreme in one area and very hard to the extreme in the other area. Really intense, extreme training, but very low time commitment. And so because of that, he sort of ended up in a range that worked optimally for him to build something incredible. And he enjoyed that, and he regrets nothing. He had many, many injuries, and that is where he started to kind of go into this area of, oh shit, maybe I'm doing too much, but he did retire. He only did it for 12 years. He only bodybuilded for 12 years, and he became the best in the world for 6 of those years. So with how great he did, he doesn't have regrets, and he's living his best life now, and he's much more balanced, enjoying his life. And I think that's a really good analogy for a lot of people. For me, as an example, I worked my fucking cock off throughout most of my 20s. I worked 2 jobs while going to school full time for the majority of my schooling. I dropped out of college in 2011 and became a trainer. Did that for a couple of years, and I had the opportunity to go back to school, which I've already detailed in a previous episode. Go back and watch it if you want to hear the whole story. But the entire 7 years I was in university, I worked 1 or 2 jobs that entire time, saved every penny I could, and it was fucking hard. I averaged anywhere from 4 to 6 hours of sleep on a nightly basis. It was very difficult, but my idea was, if I work hard in my 20s, I won't have to the rest of my life. And that's why I can do these podcasts right now. I don't have to work as much because I'm in a good position, because I own my house in full, because I have roommates that pay me rent to live in my house. It works for them because they're not paying as much as they would anywhere else. It works for me because I get that income each month. It's a good symbiotic relationship that I can thrive on. But I wouldn't have had that if I didn't work so hard earlier in my 20s. So the idea, just like how Dorian worked very, very hard. In 12 years, he became the best in the world for 6 of those. He worked his ass off, he got what he wanted, and then now he gets to live the rest of his life in prosperity. Kind of the same thing that I did for myself, but it's different. I applied these sorts of ideas to myself. And in addition, on a much more micro scale, the last couple of months, I've been seeing really great results with my training. I've been going heavier and heavier, but in a very controlled way, tracking my results, going up incrementally each week, just like I described in my last episode of the podcast, which you can now view because it's fucking up. But the idea being I was doing very well, but I took it too far, and I started to get some accumulating fatigue issues. I started waking up every single day with hip pain. It wouldn't go away. No matter what I did, no matter what rehab I did, no matter how much sleep I got, no matter how much I ate, it wouldn't go away. So I said, fuck it. Took 3 days off at the end of last week. Came back, worked out for the first time yesterday after those 3 days off. During the workout and this morning, no hip pain for the first time in months. I drew it back from the extreme, and I'm progressing again. Now, I'm not doing the same weights I was 2 weeks ago, but I'll get back to it. The idea is you take 2 steps forward, 1 step back. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. You always course correct. You go from the extreme to the other, back and forth, slowly but surely, closing the range so you can find what's optimal for you. You will have the setbacks that I mentioned earlier. You will get injured. You will lose out on an opportunity. Something will go wrong. And that's what all these fucking gurus talk about when it comes to failure and how important failure is. Another good example, Bob Proctor, who is a fucking despicable person. I'm glad he's dead. But he is one of the most famous motivational speakers you will find in that self-help realm because he talked a lot for fucking decades about this shit. But the dude was a complete scam artist. He's the guy who really pioneered The Secret or the Law of Attraction and how if you just envision it, make yourself a vision board, you'll be a billionaire. He's a fucking cocksucker. Can't stand the man, but he's got some good quotes. And he would always talk about this. And the idea being you kind of have to fail to become better. And a lot of gurus, air quotes gurus, talk about that. You have to fail to become better because you have to figure out what doesn't work before you figure out what does. Not everybody gets the gold on the first time trying to mine it. All right? So what helps with this? How can you figure out what works best for you? Well, in the day of social media, it's kind of hard to do. There's a lot of people out there spewing that they have the right way, as I referred to in my last podcast. Here's what I suggest. You sit quietly, you be a fly on the wall, you absorb everything, you listen, you don't speak. That's what I suggest. That's what I've done for years. And then if you want to be somebody like me who accumulates all this information, puts it together, jumbles it all up, blends it up, and creates an idea smoothie, and then I can drink it and regurgitate it to you, then you can, or you can just drink it, consume it, and you can have it for yourself and apply it to yourself in fucking silence. You don't have to tell the fucking world. There's a reason, if you look at my Instagram and my social media accounts, Facebook and so on, you don't see me posting this particular phrase that says, grind in silence. I'm grinding in silence. Well, hey, I don't know if you know this, but if you have to say you're grinding in silence, you're not grinding in silence. If you have to say, oh, I'm a beast mode. If you have to tell people you're a beast and you're in beast mode, you are in fact not a beast and not in beast mode. Shut the fuck up. Few people piss me off in social media more than these people who have to announce to the world who they are. No. They will figure it out through your fucking actions. Shut the fuck up, you cringy piece of hot garbage. Now, that complaint aside, figure out what works best for you. Figure out what range works best for you. Because it doesn't really matter. And it's not like there's a fucking measuring stick going back and forth telling you you're getting too close to the end of this extreme and too close to the end of the other. No. You sit there on social media. You consume the thoughts and ideas of everyone, not just people you agree with. And I'll tell you why. I used Jordan Peterson earlier. When I was younger, I agreed with a lot of what Jordan Peterson said. The older I get, the more I disagree with what he says. I still enjoy what he does. I still enjoy the content he puts out there, and I consume it. But I agree with him less and less. I'll give you another example. Ben Shapiro. I disagree with Ben a lot. To this day, I still disagree with Ben Shapiro. But as opposed to Jordan Peterson, it's the opposite in terms of how I consume the material. With Jordan Peterson, I consumed a ton of his material years ago, and very little of Ben's. Agreed with Jordan in the beginning, disagreed with Ben back then. Today, I still disagree with Ben, and now I'm disagreeing with Jordan Peterson more and more. But although I disagree with Ben, the same that I did back then, I enjoy consuming his content because I paid attention to him. Again, don't like a lot of his viewpoints, and I think he's wrong about a lot of shit. However, when you watch him enough, and you watch more than just these video clips of Ben Shapiro destroys libtard, If you watch more than just those, if you watch long form podcasts with him talking to people, he sounds like a normal fucking person. He doesn't sound like this dweeb who's just spitting out factual information. He's not just this meme, he's a person. Whereas the more I listen to Jordan Peterson, the more he sounds like this calculated meme. Honestly. Everything that Jordan Peterson says nowadays, it sounds like this calculated response where everything's a philosophy, everything's this life-changing idea that you have to apply. And that's why I'm liking Jordan Peterson less and less. Whereas Ben Shapiro, he's not trying to espouse all that many ideas. He's just trying to talk. And people will debate him and they'll argue with him and he'll argue back. And he's not afraid to do that. Now, let me tell you, there are a few people who are made fun of more than Ben Shapiro. He handles it very well. I mean, good Lord, the man has taken a beating, especially with the whole wet-ass pussy thing. And then they remixed it. And then they talked about how his poor wife, there's no way she gets wet, all these things. Like, it's the man has taken a beating, but he's doing just fine. And I respect somebody who can remain that confident. I respect somebody who can still be nice about it. He's a very interesting character. I think he's fucking stupid as shit with his viewpoints on gay marriage, for instance, but he's an Orthodox Jew, it makes sense. The idea being this: you can disagree with somebody, still consume their content, and get something out of it. What I get out of Ben Shapiro? You can still be a decent human being toward your opposition. You don't have to be an asshole just because somebody's being an asshole to you. You don't have to be an asshole just because somebody disagrees with you. You can still be friends with people you disagree with. That's the general message I get from Ben Shapiro. Because I see him debating people he disagrees with all the time, and they laugh and they enjoy their time together. Who'd have thunk? Separate the art from the artist. Separate the idea from the innovator. And apply it to yourself, see if it helps. And there's more to this whole idea of range than I'm getting into. I don't want this to be a 2-hour podcast. I want it to be about a half hour. I don't have that much time. Plus, I don't think you fuckers are going to stick around for 2 hours anyway. But what I'm trying to get at, you have to figure out what range is optimal for you. And here's the key. What determines if that's optimal is where your values, principles, goals, and purpose, or what gives you fulfillment in life, where all of that falls. There's a lot to consider. I've mentioned routine a lot these last few weeks and these last few episodes. It's very important to me. My girlfriend, on the other hand, fucking hates routine for the most part. She is not organized with A, B, C, D, all the way down to Z, whereas I am. We're complete opposites in that. And that's what she likes. She doesn't like eating the same thing every day. She doesn't like doing the same thing every day. That's me. I do that. She does what makes her happy. I do what makes me happy. We have completely different ranges. We have completely different operational success rates at what we consider optimal. Everybody has their own, and you have to define your own, but you need a foundation first. You have to figure out what value you place in your day-to-day life. From the time you wake up to the time you go to bed, what's important to you. That's where you can start to figure out where this range can be. And I think that also, as a sub-point, you can do this with your politics also. You don't need to identify as a Democrat, a Republican, a Libertarian, an Independent. You don't have to identify as any of that shit. You can look at what they're doing, they being whichever candidate you like, and you can literally do a T-chart. Agree with this, don't agree with that. Don't agree with that, agree with this. And you can figure out which candidate you agree with more, and that's how you can determine your vote, or you can petition and protest for better candidates. Because sometimes you find that, well, I agree with Donald Trump 15%, and I agree with Joe Biden 16%, so I guess Joe Biden, or vice versa. I agree with Trump 18% and Joe Biden 14%. I guess I'll vote for Trump. Like, you see what I'm saying? That's not optimal. That is, fuck that. Who wants to vote for somebody they agree with less than 20% in both situations I just gave? It's bullshit. You're voting for a turd no matter what. And I think we all hate that. Whether it's Roe v. Wade, whether it's immigration, whether it's economics, gas prices, inflation, the housing market, whatever. When you're listening to any consumable content, when you're listening to any person espouse A, B, C, all the way down to Z, and then fuck it, go into the Chinese alphabet, which has 1,500 characters, and go through all those fuckers too. If you cannot figure out what works best for you, you're not going to go anywhere. You're just going to mindlessly do shit. So identify your values. Create a foundation of principles that you can attain those values from. Pick ideas that you enjoy, be it religion, be it politics, your health, mental, emotional, spiritual, all of those, and create a life for you. Do not try to be someone else. Do not try to copy and paste someone else's existence or ideas and make them your own, because it's not going to work. Pay attention to what they did and identify what you relate to. Apply it to yourself. Make it your own. Which, if you think about it, if you look back at American Idol, as fucking terrible as that show is, some of the best artists took songs that they were covering and made it their own, and they always did better. Whereas the ones who just tried to mimic what the song already did, they never made it very far. So, take it, make it your own, combine it with other ideas that could be in the same field or realm of thought, or something across the spectrum. Maybe even take something on one extreme and the other, combine the two, and you land somewhere in the middle. I don't know. I'm being very vague on purpose, because this is very general. This is a very broad topic. But, just like if your blood sugar goes too high or too low, you will fucking die. Don't go too hard in the paint, and don't do too little. Don't procrastinate, and don't overwork. Don't do nothing, but don't burn out. Figure out what works best for you. But thank you for listening. This podcast will release in a couple of days, probably Wednesday, because that's when I'll have time to edit it, and I'm going to make sure that the fucker is uploaded properly. Thank you for being my cast. I've been your dude. Enjoy the rest of your day. Happy Monday, even though this is going to come out on Wednesday. I'm sorry. That's just how it works. I'm wearing the shirt, so you know. Have a great week, and I'll see you guys next time.
It's time to put our times behind, get all the bad things off your mind. He's feeling good, she's feeling good, we're feeling good, yeah. Just hanging out, just having fun, we're number one. Just hanging out, just having fun. I'm a dude, he's a dude, she's a dude, we're all good day. I'm a dude, he's a dude, she's a dude, we're all good day. There's nothing better than your friends, there's no problem you can't win. Someone that's always got your back, not caring about this or that. Just hanging out, just having fun, we're number one. Just hanging out, just having fun. I'm a dude, he's a dude, she's a dude, we're all good day. I'm a dude, he's a dude, she's a dude, we're all good day. I'm a dude, he's a dude, she's a dude, we're all good day. I'm a dude, he's a dude, she's a dude, we're all good day. It's all about meeting new faces. The smiles on your face and you can't erase it. Partying on, it's going on, huh? Partying on till the break of dawn. Oh, it's time to put hard times behind, get all the bad things off your mind. Just hanging out, just having fun, we're number one. Just hanging out, just having fun. Just hanging out, just having fun, we're number one. Whoa, I'm a dude, he's a dude, she's a dude, we're all dudes, hey. I'm a dude, he's a dude, she's a dude, we're all dudes, hey.